Right, so today's episode, we've got Dobbo, as he's known to his mates, Matthew Dobson. He's a Wirral boy, as our listeners will find out soon, and he's got a really interesting journey, hasn't he? From he's never played professional sport, but he's now he's sort of developed for his junior career, if you like, and he's now a PE teacher at Woodhouse Grove School near Bradford and Leeds, and he has got a really interesting journey, through his university, what university did for him, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him. Actually, should be really, really good.
Yeah, for me, this is the beauty of the podcast. We can go from an elite athlete in Laura last week, and we've obviously spoke to Dane on the pilot episode. This one's got a real nice personal touch in the sense that I've known Dobbo for quite a few years, since he started at Leeds Beckett University through to graduating, and he's now my assistant coach at Leeds Hockey Club. And he has got a really good story. So I'm looking forward to sort of sharing this with our listeners. Before we get going, I guess we should probably address some of the feedback we've had from some of our listeners from last week. Have you had much?
Yeah, a little bit. One of a couple of my friends, or one of them in particular, he was really interested in the Laura podcast. He's a keen part runner. It's a different guy to the person who actually asked the question in the pod itself. And he said, he frequently tries to chase her around Roundhay Park, but she's really fast. So I don't think he's stalking her. But, he really sort of resonated with him at just how fast she is. She really, really is fast. And another guy was saying how, he was a very good athlete when he was younger. He was running sort of 16, 17 minute 5Ks, which is seriously fast. And he was like, he's just staggered that she's constantly in that 14, 15 minute. Fair play. But yeah, Laura, I don't think you've got any stalkers. You're so fast they can't catch you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got no problems, has she? She'll soon get away.
How's your week been, mate?
Yeah, it's been all right. I'd say still on furlough, so just keeping busy doing a couple of webinars. Still out in the garage.
Still throwing some arrows.
Still throwing some arrows every now and then. I actually had a few other lads that listen to the podcast have dropped me messages saying we should try and play virtually, and I've had a couple that weren't aware of the Russ Bray darts app, and have now downloaded it at whatever it cost, £3-4. So Russ, look out in the post. My invoice is on its way.
Get your cash.
Sure, this global podcast is going to take that app to a new level. So I've had a few lads message me say we should try and play virtually. I think the beauty of that app is you can actually play it anywhere in the world. You can connect virtually. So I'm sure I'll end up doing that sometime this week. But no, it's been a quiet week. But I guess the darts has probably been my focus really, which is I'm not sure what I make of that. But
brilliant.
But no, I'm excited to get this podcast out there and hear more about Dobbo. So I guess we should probably crack on, should we?
Yeah, let's do it, mate.
So we have Matt Dobson on the podcast. Welcome, Matt.
Good evening. How are you all doing? Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad at all.
So this bit might get edited out. So just for a bit of transparency, Matt knows both Lewis and I. Matt was a former student of mine when he was at university. So I've coached Matt, and he's now actually my assistant coach in our National League programme of Leeds Hockey Club. So I know Matt fairly well, but as we said in the introduction, I think the importance of this podcast is we speak to a lot of people that have been affected by sport or impacted by sport. It doesn't matter if that goes up to an elite playing level, elite coaching level, amateur level, officials, or people that are just heavily involved in sport and enjoy sport. So we think today could be quite an interesting podcast. So we'll see where we get on. So Matt, thanks for joining us. We always like to start the podcast with you giving us a 2-minute sporting journey. So you kind of interpret that however you see fit. There's no kind of guidance from Lewis or I. Lewis will time you, and he's got the timer set up.
Okay.
So whenever you're ready, it's over to you to give us a rundown of your 2-minute sporting journey.
Okay, great. I'll try and keep it down to 2 minutes. It's not as cliche as some people. I feel like a lot of people sort of say my parents are really big and into sport and they got me into sport from a young age. It wasn't quite like that. My family are more sort of musical, into like the amateur dramatics. Don't know if you know this about me, but I think I'm like a grade 2 or 3 ballet because that's what I used to do when I was in primary school. And I found sport difficult, but it was something I always wanted to be good at, mainly because my friends were very talented. Played for Liverpool Academy, played rugby for county level, etc. And when I got to secondary school, I really sort of pursued that. It wasn't something that came naturally to me, but I was adamant I was going to be good at sport and PE. My PE teachers were quality. I think that's why I'm now a PE teacher myself. I used to do everything: cross-country running, basketball, football. Got into hockey when I didn't quite make the A and B rugby team. We had 150 boys in a year, so one of our teachers at the school was really big at pushing hockey at our school, and he dragged a few of us in. We played under 16 national tournaments, we played under 18 indoor nationals, and then I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was older, so I applied to study sport and exercise science at Leeds Met. I knew nothing about books, nothing about university sport. When I arrived, I sort of joined the team, and after a bit of a slow start, really got involved with the hockey team, and from there it's just grown and grown. So I was club captain for a couple of years. I was on the AU exec. I graduated. I'm now a qualified PE teacher, and like Ollie said, I'm assistant coach at Leeds Hockey Club. Do some coaching at Academy Centre for West Yorkshire, and I spend my summers coaching in America. So that's kind of it, really. Just aims to continue and go higher and higher.
Amazing. 146.
Ooh, time
Good effort. That's really good, Matt. It's quite interesting, actually. There's some stuff there that I didn't know about you. The ballet thing. Intrigued to see some of your moves one day, maybe.
Well, you've always known I've got a talent on the dance floor. Come on.
I have seen a couple of videos flying around. Lou, do you want to jump in first?
There's a few things in there. So, am I right in saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that sort of sport was almost driven by your peers and the fact that your peers played, and that was obviously a way for you to socialise and
definitely. Almost to that kind of stereotype at school where you got the cool kids being good at sport, and I was friends with them, but I was like not as good as them, and that just really pushed me to want to get better. Where I'm from, football is massive, and whether it was a knockabout on the playground or lunchtime, from the age of, I remember being 7 or 8 years old, and those lunchtime games of football, when I see my friends now from school every now and again, we still talk about goals we scored when we were 9, 10 years old. And some of my mates were particularly talented, and I guess they pushed me because I always wanted to be in the team, whether it was the cross-country team or the basketball team. I didn't care if I was the substitute, if I barely played, I wasn't bothered. I just wanted to be in that team, and they're part of the sort of the whole environment.
So did you go to Caldy Grange, is that right?
Wirral Grammar.
Wirral Grammar.
Yeah, big rivals with Caldy.
Oh yeah, so basically I've basically just said, in effect, you're an Everton fan when you're actually a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
Right. So who was the driver? Who's the key hockey person there?
I think you might know him, Anthony Metcalf.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a PE teacher there, or at least I think he still is. I know he's had a lot of knee surgeries and some issues recently, but I know he's the head coach of Neston. I think he played for England under 16s himself, and played at Preston, was a good player. I think through injury took an early retirement. And our school, with it being a grammar school, was very much rugby. We didn't have a hockey pitch, but football was like a swear word. And it's like we loved it. We played it at lunchtime, but in terms of within the curriculum or a team where you could compete against other schools, it was a massive no-no. Not a chance. So yeah, it was an all-boys school, so 150 boys in a year. If you didn't quite make that top 25 players in year 7 and 8 for the 2 rugby teams, you were didn't really have a second sport. But there's still a lot of talented footballers and other sports people within the year group. I just remember year 9, I think it was, under 14s. He just went, right, one day, he was like, you, let's go, minibus, your game's option. We didn't get a choice. It was like, there's the rugby team, there's the sort of sports development group. You boys left in the middle that probably all footballers. Here's a stick, on the bus, we're going to the local pitch. And that's kind of just how I remember it. We had this one player called George, who I know you both know, and he was a very good hockey player, played in England under 16s, and there were maybe one or two others in the squad that had played hockey before. The rest of us were literally footballers with sticks, and our teacher, Anthony, just made us practice and practice and practice, and we weren't the best technically. We just got really fit. We had a really good team morale. We ended up getting to under 16s national finals, being the only state school there. Just got beaten in the last couple of minutes of the game against Millfield to miss out on the semis. It was massively achieving for the team we had, and very fond memories with that squad. Finishing school career, going on tour to Australia was special.
Oh, nice. That's cool. So was those national finals, were they, indoor or outdoor?
Under 16s was outdoor, so that was played at Cannock. And then we didn't quite qualify for under 18s, but we did get through to the nationals at Whitgift for indoor hockey at under 18s.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And we got annihilated.
Well, yeah, it's a whole new level, isn't it, when you get to the nationals? Although I imagine, and the listeners won't be able to see this, but how tall are you?
6'5".
Yeah, so indoor, when you can't lift the ball, it's a long way around you.
Stick, you'll be dominating at the back. No one will get around you.
In fact, we should just get you and Ollie in the same team, and I reckon if you both lay down, there's nobody passing.
We walking up. Every time we had a 16, I just pass it straight to them, so then we'd be in trouble.
Love it.
It's interesting, isn't it, that those fond memories from, I say your childhood, your teenage years. I wonder if it is just the memory of going to the finals, or if it was actually the whole journey leading up to that's important.
Oh, massively the journey. I've got memories that Anthony Metcalf, our teacher, he used to say things like, right, if you win this tournament or you win this game, you should go to like Northwest regionals and North and whatever. And it was a case of, we win today, lads, we'll get a Domino's, because they always used to be on a Tuesday, and obviously it was 2 for Tuesdays. And the first time he said it, he never expected us to win, because we were seriously the underdogs. Like, I don't think we'd ever even beaten Coldly or local rivals, and we had to play them at like the Northwest finals and whatever. And yeah, every time we got through the next round, another Domino's, and it was just quality. One memory in particular, I think it was North finals, when we played against Sedbergh, and I, until obviously the past couple of years working at a private school, didn't know anything about Sedbergh, didn't realise just how much of a sporting prowess they were. And we were playing against them and basically had to win to get through to nationals. And we were defending the entire game, 0-0, all 11 of us parked inside our own 25. Like, player for player, we were awful compared to them. And my dad had never really watched me play hockey, but he'd taken a day off work to come to this tournament. And I think I was playing left back, and we counter-attacked. I think it was probably George, tackled him at the top of the circle. We fly down the opposite end of the pitch, and I just sprint the full length of the pitch. No idea what I'm going to do when I get there. And one of our forwards holds the ball up. He pulls it back to me at the top of the circle. Classic defender, just panic, slip, fall over, slap the ball first time because I didn't want to take a touch because I was too scared I'd mess up. And I hit it, and it bobbles into the bottom corner of the goal. I reckon that goal still gives that Sedbergh coach nightmares, whoever he was. And my dad went crazy on the sideline, and it was just...
That's amazing.
Such a good memory.
I can imagine you, even at 16, like a gazelle running down the pitch, like a giraffe running down the pitch.
Yeah, nothing was different back then.
Amazing.
It's just one of those things that when I see my friends, we just joke about it every time, and it's such a special memory. And like you say, that journey with those people at that age has a massive impact on the rest of your sort of sporting life after that.
Yeah, so I suppose then really leading on, we'll just jump a little bit. You end up staying at school doing your A-levels, going to uni, and then you end up playing hockey at uni. Was that always going to be a thing, that when you went to uni you were going to play hockey, or was it similar in the fact that you still saw yourself as a footballer, but you enjoyed playing? What happened there?
How did that evolve? Yeah, so I was never involved, although I'm now coaching at like Academy Centre and doing a bit of work at Futures Cup. I'd never really heard of that, and I think my teacher had told me to go and trial, but the trials for Academy Centre were on a Sunday, and I played football on Sundays. That was it: Saturday hockey, Sunday football.
So at the time, I loved hockey, but it wasn't my obsession or anything. So I wanted to play football still. So I kind of missed out on all of that. Got to uni, and I knew I wanted to play for the hockey team. A classic at Leeds Met, you pay your £5 for your trial for the football team, like the other 500 people do at Freshers' Fair, and you don't even make it through the first 5 minutes of the trial. But I kind of knew I wanted to play hockey at uni, but I didn't realise.
We'll just chuck in there for our listeners that haven't been to uni, I guess, what that process is. So when you come to university, there's a thing called a Freshers' Fair, and that's your opportunity to sign up to different teams, different clubs, different societies. And as Matt said, you get 500 people signing up to play football. There's 4 football teams, so they're looking at taking on 65 to 80 people. And you get at least 500 people sign up. So they go to trials, and first trial, the last 10 minutes, and off you go, mate. You're not good enough. So and then carry on. So then you're not going to hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd always wanted to join the hockey team, but I think I was so naive to the university system in terms of books and how big it was, and all the universities, your Loughboroughs and your Birmingham's being so good at hockey. I kind of knew nothing about which unis were good at hockey or whatever. Didn't know the book system, and I kind of think I was naive to just how good players at university already would be and how old they were. I was a very sort of naive and young 18-year-old, and all of a sudden you're at uni with master's students who are 23, 24, and it was just an environment I wasn't expecting. But you join, you go along, and it really opens your eyes to just how big the sort of hockey world is. And everyone always talks about like the hockey family and how everyone knows everyone, and actually was so naive to that before university. I really enjoyed sort of joining that culture at the university and getting to know a lot of people, but it wasn't like that at the start, to be honest. Like I said, I was a very sort of naive 18-year-old. My family are quite religious, and I kind of knew what kind of person I wanted to be, and be a good person making good decisions. And there's a lot of different people at university, and all of a sudden being thrown into that sort of like honeypot in that environment, you meet different people, and you're almost scared to be yourself. And I think at the time when I joined university, I was on the 3rd team, and there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of sort of social players that aren't really there for performance. And like, I think some of the boys in that team were 27, 28 potentially, very old master's students, been around a long time, and it was very intimidating at first. I think I was just so scared to be myself in case they didn't like you, or you didn't fit in. It took me a while, to be honest, to really sort of break down those barriers.
It's quite interesting, actually, because and you never, maybe working in a university environment, you sometimes forget that you get players coming to uni. Someone like yourself who's actually played in a good team with, let's say with some very good players. You mentioned George, who is a very good player. And when you come to uni, there's a bigger pool of players, isn't there? So you've gone to nationals. You could arguably say, well, I'm a national finalist, national champion at my age group. But then when you go to a bigger pool of players and the standard jumps up, actually you find yourself in the 3rd team, and that could be a bit of a shock to think, hang on. At school, I was in the school 1st team with a coach being looked after 2 or 3 times a week. And that's probably quite a change, isn't it, in terms of your experience of the sport in general?
Yeah, massively. You go from, like you say, a level 3 coach, coaching you 3 times a week, teaching you PE another 2 times, having a fitness session, matches, and then all of a sudden you're in a team with social players that don't really care about winning. They're there just to go out and get on a drink afterwards. Yeah. You're being coached by maybe the 2nd team captain or a 1st team player from the university. Yeah. And it is not a step down, but the whole culture around it is very different.
So did you play adult hockey before you went to uni? Did you play for a club, or did you just play?
Yeah, I played for Devonton. So my local team that's probably the best is probably Neston. Chester are pretty good, Oxton. But I literally lived 10 minutes away from Devonton's pitch. And like with the family situation, it was just I had to walk the training. They were the cheapest match fees, so that's where I played. But even then, I think with it being a fairly small club, my experience of adult hockey at that sort of young age wasn't as good as it could have been. I think I was being played down a level and at the 3s, 4s, 5s just because they needed good youngsters to be fit and get up and down the pitch. Whereas actually looking back and how that club's changed and now sort of operating, they're more inclined to push juniors in the first and second team to develop them. Whereas back then, that wasn't their focus. It was a case of, we need the young, fit ones in the team full of older men so they can carry the team through.
Need some bodies.
So yeah, very different experience coming to Leeds. Joining Leeds Hockey Club actually was a great thing I did when I was a fresher. And I actually found at times I fit in better with an adult hockey club during my first semester at uni than I did the university one, because it was just, I was quite mature, although I was a bit young and naive, I was quite a mature 18-year-old, I'd say, as well. And I probably enjoyed socialising with the likes of Tim Newman, Phil Stubley. These, for those that don't know, these are sort of people in their 30s that have played for Leeds Hockey Club for a long time, and great men, great squad players, great team people that just love the club, love helping people out. I'd have a different bloke from the team come and pick me up every week from where I lived in my university halls to take me to the training pitch, take me to matches. Persuaded one of my other friends from uni to join, Ollie Whiteman, and that first semester was really good fun, playing with those older players, and they sort of took you under their wing and looked after you. I think that sort of is underrated, how important that is to have connections with non-students in your local area. And it's certainly a big reason why I've stuck around in Leeds since graduating.
I suppose really it's a more familiar environment, wasn't it, in terms of you've played club hockey with people that are old, significantly older than you by 15 years maybe.
Yeah.
Coming to uni is a big wide world. It is an eye-opener, and actually that gave you a bit more of a comfort zone to be in.
Yeah.
So then talk us through, so what happened through your first year then? So you said you kind of struggled a bit to work it out, or there was a lot going on and you kind of didn't really know where to put yourself. And
yeah, I had a couple of friends who were freshers, and I was up in the hockey team as well, and went to a couple of socials, but I wasn't someone who went out every single week. I was committed to playing, committed to training, but in terms of the social side, just didn't really see myself fitting in. And I actually went quite spontaneously, bought tickets to go and see a friend of mine in America over the Christmas period. So I spent 3 weeks. I think back then we did our exams in December, and I very spontaneously went away for Boxing Day, New Year, to visit my friend in America. And it was kind of totally out of my comfort zone, traveling on my own, still 18. And I had the best couple of weeks just sort of getting to know him, getting to know his mates. And I really just, because I was on my own, I had to put myself out there. And I remember sitting at the airport on the way home, got the 1 hour free Wi-Fi waiting for my flight. And it popped up on the Leeds Beckett Facebook page at the time. Tom Marshall was club captain at the time, said, someone's dropped out of tour. There's a spare space going. It's in Easter. It'd be great if it was a fresh to stand up. It can be anyone along those lines. We need to know ASAP because the deadline's tomorrow. So I just straight away called him and was like, I'm in, Samuel, I'm in. And just so spontaneously, because of how good that trip, because I'd had to put myself out there traveling on my own, I thought, you know what, actually, just put yourself out there and just be yourself. And if you still don't fit in, then you won't regret it, but at least you tried. So yeah, and that was it. I went on, because I was going on tour, you get to know the team better. You go on the tour, you spend the week having fun with them, getting to know the lads. And I mean, the rest is history. That was.
Let's not beat around the bush. Let's just, for our listeners, a university sports tour isn't going away playing hockey. It's very much an alcohol-fueled week away abroad, isn't it? Which clearly is a great opportunity to socialise if that's your thing. And you didn't know if it was your thing, really. You went on there and almost took that gamble.
Yeah.
£100. Let's go away with the lads. And it's a huge event in terms of you get the whole university, all the sports teams go in, hockey, football, rugby, and different unis. So you have 1,000, 2,000 students to send on one town or city on the continent. And just have a great social, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's a good experience. I remember, so I'd had all this confidence to sign up, and in the weeks and days leading up to it, I was petrified, if I'm honest, and I was all of a sudden became that kind of social recluse again as well. I don't know if I can go. I don't know if that's me. The day before, I was really contemplating not going. And I saw one of the hockey players on campus, one of the lads in the team, someone I didn't know that well. And I didn't think he knew who I was. And he instantly recognised me and just started talking to me about the tour and how excited he was I signed up. And it just kind of was like, oh, he knows, this person knows who I am. What is this all about? And after spending that week getting to know that group of people on because you spend so much time together over 5-6 days, you get to know them very quickly and they get to know you, and it instantly broke down those barriers, and was an unbelievable week for sure.
I have great memories of my university tours. We did Holland and the Isle of Man, and it was just carnage. It was just brilliant. I mean,
those memories do stay with you, don't they?
Yeah, oh man, it was just, yeah. And it's right what you say, that going out of your comfort zone. I remember when I went to uni as an 18-year-old, I always think I probably went a year too early because I was quite naive. Quite enjoyed going to the pub, and obviously played a lot of hockey and rugby when I was at school, and then obviously we were going to go and play hockey at uni. That was definitely going to do it. But yeah, it's that whole, like, you turn up and all of a sudden there's these sort of mid-20s guys and you're the fresher. So, it doesn't happen. Hazing doesn't happen. But, we all know that you might have to drink the odd beverage to, just gain a little bit of respect in those early days. And, those guys are now lifelong friends. Like we were Zoom calling last week with the university hockey team. Guys I've known, so I'm not 41. Guys I've literally known 20 odd years. Yeah. Which I'm sure the same for you guys.
And well, yeah, I mean, my best mate to this day is the guy I met first night of uni, actually. Played hockey together, and that's been 15 years. So yeah, absolutely. And you still keep in touch with those people, don't you? Like, even if it's months past, you can pick up the phone and catch up as if you'd just been speaking to each other the night before. So,
I wanted a question around the importance of PE teachers. It's something that you'd said about Anthony Metcalf being your teacher, and he almost saying to you, right, you guys aren't going to be in the first team for rugby or the AB team, whatever. You guys are clearly a bunch of footballers, and we don't do football. So I'm going to try and get you into a different sport, or at least give you exposure to it. And I guess if you'd not had somebody who A, had the knowledge of hockey, and B, was willing to go, right, well, let's just try something. You may never have found hockey. And obviously now you're a PE teacher. I wanted just a bit of a reflection on that, really.
Yeah, it's, without being too cheesy, it's quite simple. If he hadn't have made that decision to make us sort of play hockey in the games afternoon, where we were 14, we didn't have choice in what we did, really. It was a case of, this is what we're doing today. Without that, I would never have played. I wouldn't have joined the club outside of school. I certainly wouldn't have played at uni. And my whole job now, and what I want to do as a career when I'm older, is all focused around hockey. I reckon 80% of what I do on a day-to-day basis, and what I think about, and where I want to go, is all about hockey. And that, quite simply, is what I want to do in my life. And without him making that one decision to go, actually, we're going to go and try hockey because I know a lot about it and I've got one or two good players, my life would be totally different, without being too cheesy. I think teachers as general, not just PE teachers, have a very important role. I don't think sometimes they see how much they can mould young people, and how much influence they can have. It could be a chemistry teacher, if that's your thing, and that they ignite that passion, and you go on to be, a chemist or a doctor that potentially saves lives, etc., then it's massive how much of an influence teachers can have. All of my PE teachers, I'd say, were excellent, and just that focus on sport, and me now being a teacher myself, I want to give kids a different opportunity to play different sports, find what they love. It doesn't matter if they're not great at rugby or netball, whatever it is, just give them a taste of everything and find out what it is they enjoy. It could be a kid who's not sporty at all, decides they really like badminton, and if that's what they do, they don't even become a top player, but to think that they could leave school and university, and when they're 20, 30, 40, still playing badminton as their way to keep fit and healthy. That's what I aim to do, is to give people that sort of platform to realise how important sport and fitness is in their lives, and how, having a healthy, active lifestyle is. So I think teachers can really mould young people.
So you've come off tour. You've kind of, I guess, really started to build some good, strong relationships with some of your peers now. So then talk us through the next steps.
So, I mean, from the second we got back, I just couldn't wait for the next year to start, because when you go on the hockey tour, the season's already finished. So I instantly couldn't wait for that September, that season restarting. And we had our end of season AGM, and people applied to sort of run the club, whether it's club captain or at the time, it was a secretary, treasurer, and no one had gone for the treasurer role. And we just sat there watching, generally sort of second, third years go for roles, anyone that's going to be there a while. And no one went for it. And I remember the social secretary at the time just sort of stood up and went, Dobbo, why don't you do it? I was like, what? And that was literally, I was like, I mean, if no one else wants to, I'd love to get involved. And just because of how I'd got to know people and obviously how I'd come across, I guess, on the tour as being, I like to think, sensible but fun at the same time. And, yeah, Dobbo, you can be on the committee, get involved. And I remember you, Ollie, as head of hockey at the time, we sort of had a meeting in the pre-season. And I think, we'd maybe spoken once, if ever. And I think maybe perhaps my guess is you're a bit dubious, or who's this fresher coming in? The lads have voted him on the committee. The person who was secretary left uni that summer, so rather than appoint somebody else, I kind of mopped up both roles, and just got heavily involved in terms of the logistics side of the club and the running of the club. So I just thoroughly, and I think that's where my strengths lie, is like logistics and organising things. And I just loved being involved off the pitch as much as on it, and just trying to help everyone at the university have a more positive university experience of student sport.
Yes, I think that from memory, that that AGM, there was someone else appointed as secretary role, wasn't there? And they didn't return the following September, did they? That was right. So
yeah.
You, as you say, mopped up both those roles.
And probably did a lot of Muir's job as club captain as well.
Alex Muir was club captain, wasn't he? Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so probably did a lot of his jobs for him too.
So Matt, you've finished your first year. I mean, I guess just for clarity for our listeners, to explain a couple of things, there's some words there you use that, or some things you gave examples of that our listeners may not understand. So BUCS is British University and College Sport. So that's basically like the governing body for university sports, a bit like a FIFA for football or the FA or whatever it may be. So that's the governing body. So when Matt refers to BUCS, he's talking about basically playing university sport. So you've finished your first year. You've had this quite a probably varied experience in terms of you joined Leeds hockey clubs. You're getting that experience playing weekend hockey. You've kind of, through a trip to America, almost given yourself permission to actually go and explore things and do things, and you've taken opportunities to go on a sports tour, and has really started to ingrain you into the hockey club at the university. And at the end of the year, you've taken on the treasurer role and the secretary role. Again, I guess just for the purpose of our listeners, every sports club at a university will have a committee, and that will be a club captain who is like a club president in a way, that they're kind of the figurehead of the club. And below that, you'll have a secretary, a treasurer who obviously controls finances, and a social secretary who organises socials. And you'll have your team captains. And every university will vary, and club will vary in terms of what those roles do. They'll have extra roles like a kit secretary and that kind of stuff, won't they? So just, I guess, for our listeners there, so they're a bit up to speed on what some of those things mean. So I guess ultimately you were just taking on more responsibility within the hockey club. You were given the opportunity to take on responsibility. And then one of the guys that was voted in as club secretary didn't return for his next year of study. And it was agreed with myself and I think the committee at the time, the other members, to not to reappoint that role. And you were willing to take that role on. So let's pick it back up then. So I guess going into second year, talk us now through your university life.
Yeah, so going into second year, I'd actually had a bit too much fun at the back end of my second semester, and messed up some of my essays. So I actually had to resit some modules. So although it was my second year at uni, it was technically resitting first year, my second year of first year. Only I had to resit the modules in the second semester from January to the summer. So I was technically at university with nothing to study from September till Christmas. My parents didn't know. They thought I was still in my second year. I kind of figured I'd wait till I fixed the problem. Didn't tell them there was a problem. So I had a lot of time to commit to the hockey club and to take on both those roles. I think we'd sort of identified early on that we wanted to win. So within all the sports at the university, they have like an award ceremony at the end of the year, rugby, lacrosse, etc., etc. And one of the awards is Club of the Year. And we'd quite early sort of identified that we wanted to really push how the university viewed the hockey club as a sporting team at the university, that they're to sort of be a positive influence on its members, being successful on and off the pitch. So we really sort of pushed that side of it. And I think that year we had a lot of positive results on the pitch, maybe 4 promotions out of 6 teams, something like that. Off the pitch, like I say, I had a lot of spare time. So we really sort of revamped the club, sponsorship deals, websites. But the big one was our charity event. And we just finished the 3 peaks the year before, where you climb Ben Nevis, Scafell Pike and Snowdon in 24 hours. And we really wanted to step it up a gear. A little bit, if I'm honest, because we wanted to look good. We wanted the university to turn on and go, oh, the hockey team there, they're doing well. But actually, we just decided we wanted to give back to, people around us and just do something good for the community. So we decided that we'd take on a bit of a challenge cycling from Leeds to Paris in 5 days. So we spent a lot of time planning that, pulled that off with the lads. About 14, 15 of us cycled to Paris, raised 6-7 grand for Marie Curie Cancer Care, and then we went on to win Club of the Year at the University Sports Awards. And we were also lucky enough to win Special Contribution to University Sports as a whole club at the Leeds Sports Awards, which is a pretty special experience. So, we weren't doing it to win awards really. We wanted, to have the hockey club to have a good, well-known reputation on the campus, but we didn't ever really do it to win awards. We wanted to, give something back, and to be at that Leeds Sports Awards where you had Olympians, ex-Olympians or Olympians winning awards for their contribution to sport in Leeds. And Nicola Adams, I think, won an award, and one of the gymnasts from Leeds won an award. And to get to go on that stage that evening and be awarded an award for our special contribution to university sport was, a real big highlight. And yeah, it's just fond memories of that year. Everything seemed to go successfully on and off the pitch. We just had a really good culture and atmosphere within the club. Didn't matter whether you played first, second, third, fourth team. Didn't matter if it was the boys' club, the girls' club. We really tried to make it just one big club where you felt involved, and no matter who you were, what your background was, everyone was welcome. And I think we really started to change the dynamic of the university sports team, being from a social one to a more welcoming, all-rounded environment.
There's the charity event in particular is something which, as you know, I did at uni with a few of my peers, and we still have those memories. So we did it for Help for Heroes, and we cycled to Paris as well, but not from Leeds, from Canterbury, and went via the Somme and some of the war graves and stuff like that. And so it was really poignant and has a lot of memories for us. I think exactly the same. I was actually on that trip, wasn't I? I was driving one of the vans as sport vehicles. And I know the importance of those kind of trips, and it just kind of emphasises what uni is about, or it's just another thing that you can do at uni. You have the opportunity to do these things. Yeah, it was a very good trip, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was special. Like you say, just being a university student, having the time to do that. I think students are renowned for being lazy and sort of dossing and wasting their time. We decided we wanted to club together and do something good. And since those events we did at university, we always talk now. I'm talking to people I went to uni with. Oh, wouldn't it be great if we could do that again? Wouldn't it be great if we could, maybe not even a charity, and just go on a week cycling holiday as a group of lads, or go and do something as a group? But it's hard once you've graduated and you've got jobs, and everyone works in different industries and different amounts of days off, and all of a sudden people are engaged and buying houses, and people's commitments go out the way, change completely. So to have that time as students where, to be honest, in all honesty, you probably have nothing better to do. It's the end of the year, start of June, university's finished, everyone goes back home for summer, and actually you go, no, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to challenge ourselves and, raise a bit of money, if we can raise as much money as we can for Marie Curie Cancer Care. It's, to this day, one of the best weeks of my life. Some very, very special memories. Very tough week, but so rewarding at the end of it.
There's something enriching about the soul, isn't there, doing something like that? Without getting too deep and philosophical, it's not really my nature, but, there's something that if you've got those kind of values, that really is something in there that you can't never take away. You've done something really good. Yeah, hats off to you. It was incredibly admirable. It's a big feat. Leeds to Paris, how many miles is that?
I think it was about 430.
Oof.
And we did it across 5 days. And none, apart from one person, no one had ever really ridden a road bike before. I literally bought mine a couple of weeks, about a month earlier, went on a few practice rides. One lad bought it 2 days before we started. And we were just complete amateurs with no idea. But again, that caused problems in that some of us didn't know how to fix flat tyres, etc., etc. Obviously it was for charity, so we wanted to save as much money as possible. So we camped just in fields or anywhere we could sort of camp for as cheap as possible. And we were tired and hard work, and we'd been a team. We were all friends, and we played hockey together. We'd been on holiday together, but to sort of have to overcome problems and that problem solving side of it, and actually realizing so and so just snapped at me, but hang on, he's just cycled 30 miles with a semi-flat tyre and he's exhausted. Okay, how can we compromise? How can we discuss and talk through this as a team? You really feel close as a group of people, or as a community, as a sort of, like I say, a team to overcome those problems. And you get through the other side and you finish it. And it's, very fond memories. So you never forget.
That's cool.
Will take us on? Carry on through your journey, Dob?
Yeah, so then after that year, was honoured to be voted as club captain. Obviously, I still had 2 years left at uni with resitting a year. So I then was, I think being voted in by your peers and your friends to then lead them and sort of not make decisions, but be in charge of, how things were ran and have a big influence on the club. It was an honour to be voted by your mates. I think that shows, that's the biggest compliment you can receive, I think. And that was just a wonderful 2 years leading the club. We won Club of the Year back to back. I was lucky enough to be voted for an award at Leeds Sports Awards myself. We then won it again next year as a club. With more charity events, we ran 5 marathons in 5 days, which is the most incredible week of my life.
You ran 5 marathons in 5 days?
Yeah.
That's mental.
Yeah, we just sort of had this trend of doing a charity event every year, and we knew we wanted to step it up from cycling from Leeds to Paris, and we'd done that over a 5-day period. So we kind of agreed that week had been so successful, and spending that kind of amount of time together was a good time frame. 5 days. Let's do another 5-day challenge if we can. And it was yourself and I actually that joked about 5 marathons, 5 days, and initially that's all it was: 5 marathons, 5 days. And it was, don't be silly, can't do that. Never ran half a marathon in my life, or we had boys who were particularly unfit in the squad. And we just kind of got crazy and ran away with the idea. And actually, can we do this? Can we do it? And I was adamant that actually once, I really believe even now as a teacher, as a coach, if you put your mind to something and you tell yourself you can do it, it's a bit of a cheesy quote, but your body achieves what your mind believes. And I really think that's so true. And if you tell yourself you can't do something, you're never going to be able to do it. And I think so much of sport and everything you do in life generally is just mental. And actually, once you push past those barriers and those boundaries, then you really can achieve. And I remember actually, we were discussing with the committee and other club members, can we do this 5 marathons, 5 days? And 2 of the lads who were also studying sports science came home and they were like, we just spoke to our lecturer. And just so you know, he's so advanced in his field. He's actually the guy that completed Wayne Rooney's medical at Man United. So he knows what he's talking about. Dobbo, he knows what he's talking about. He's told us there's no chance we can do it. He said, don't be ridiculous. You need to train for years for that. You need to train for months and for years to be serious athletes. There's no way, if you tried it, you won't complete it. And I just turned around and went, okay. Half an hour later, I tweeted off the club account. Half an hour later, this year's breaking news, this year's charity event, 5 marathons, 5 days. I got home and they were like, what are you doing? Like, you're crazy. And I was adamant. I knew I'd seen on that cycling trip from Leeds to Paris what the boys could do. And, as a group of friends, as a group of teammates, what we could achieve when we put our mind to it and when we were there for each other. And I just knew we could do it. And everyone in the club thought I was crazy. But what I loved, I had a group of 15, 16 lads who turned around and went, you know what, let's give it a go. And they could have easily backed down. They could have easily turned around to me and said, "You are crazy. You are an idiot. We're not doing this." And they all just bought in. I don't know what made them do it. We went on a few training runs here and there, a couple of 10 miles. I think the most some of us did was where we ran 10 miles 4 days consecutively. And that's where the most training we did. A couple of blokes who actually did complete all 5 days, ran for 3 miles, saw a pub, stopped, had a pint, and got a taxi home. And that was the only training run that they'd done. And that's all they did. And that week again was something special. It was just pushing your body through that pain limit. I think 20 of us started it on the Monday. And by the end, I think 10 people had completed all 5 in 5 days. Wow. Various people for different reasons, completing 1 or 2. Or, we had a lot of serious injuries, shin splints, feet swelling up as big as you can imagine. But yeah, incredible week. And just to have that fact at the end, when so many people had doubted us and said, you can't do it, to just, in some ways, to be able to kind of put 2 fingers up to and say, actually, you know what, we can. Don't tell us what we can and can't do. There's, pretty good feeling.
How much money did you raise?
I think we raised £8,000 or £9,000.
Wow.
The girls' club at the same time. So the weekend, I think we ran Monday to Friday, and on the Friday evening or Saturday, they went and completed the 3 Peaks Challenge. So it was all for Marie Curie, their event and our event. So I think combined total was about £12,000-13,000 between the 2 events we did.
That's really good. That's incredible.
So yeah, it was a tough week, but pretty special.
I've run a marathon and I was absolutely broken at the end of it. I cannot envisage, I could barely walk the next day. I cannot imagine getting out of bed and then going and running another one and then another one and another one and another one. I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah, it was, I think the funny part of it was, we ran Monday to Friday, and the Saturday beforehand, 2 days prior, was our club alumni day. And what we do is anyone who's graduated from the university, they come back, they play a very sort of social game of hockey, have a couple of drinks afterwards, and just socialise and catch up. So because the hockey season was finished and we started to do some distance training, kind of, I guess, had lost all that sort of fast twitch fibre. And so even though we didn't take it seriously, playing hockey on the Saturday was exhausting. I suffered from quite bad DOMS, so I woke up on the Sunday, day before the marathon number 1, and I couldn't really walk up the stairs. Just from that alumni day, I'd played hockey after not playing it for 2 months. I'd had a couple of beers that night, and I couldn't really walk Sunday morning. And I was still in pain Monday when I woke up, if I'm honest. And I just remember turning round to my girlfriend at the time. I was like, I can't even complete today, never mind the 5. And yeah, it was just everyone. It's just so funny thinking about it, because I've got so many images of just the amount of tape we used. We just, people were getting electrical tape and just taping their knees, taping their ankles. No physio with us. Nothing was done properly. No one, I swear one person had 2 rolls of tape on one knee, and it was doing absolutely nothing other than that psychological, I'm taped up now, I'm good to go, let's go. And it was just such a funny but such a painful week. And I think everyone throughout that week had different moments where they really struggled. And again, that teamwork and camaraderie and really pulled each other through. So I know for me, the second half of the 4th day was just, awful. And we ran, to make it simple, we thought we don't want to run anywhere that's sort of hills, because it's going to be too hard. So we jumped on the canal at Kirkstall in Leeds, and we ran 13.1 miles away to Bingley, and we turned around and ran 13.1 miles back. So you can imagine that got pretty boring on that canal. So yeah, try to stick together in 2s, 3s, 4s. I just remember that 4th day, I just got stranded on my own. I think I wasn't quite fast enough to keep up with the first group, but I was too fast to keep up with the slow group. And I just, awful. The amount of times I considered jumping in the canal, just stopping, giving up. It was tough, but everyone pulled each other through. And I remember at some point I got one of the lads in the hockey team posted a photo in the WhatsApp group that we had, And it was a photo of his dad. None of us knew, but his dad was seriously ill with cancer. And, we were raising him for Marie Curie Cancer Care, and he just put some message, and it said something, along the lines of, it was a really long message, and I won't go into too much detail, but there was a case of, this is what you're doing it for, and the money you're raising is literally paying for this treatment. And that was it then. There was no way we weren't finishing that week. No way.
Amazing. Yeah, what a motivator. Blimey.
It gives me goosebumps. You're talking about actually, so I remember that. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it.
Well, it's making me upset thinking about it, yeah.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I mean, I guess really my next question, or next thing to kind of just move on a little bit, is almost to how you've kind of developed through that university experience. When you look back now, I mean, we'll talk about, post-uni in a little bit, but I just wonder if you can reflect on that period of your life, that 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
What your thoughts are?
Yeah, maybe another cliche, but I think that was really a time where I went from being a young, a boy, and I like to think I came out the other side a young man, and a lot of life experiences, a lot of chance to develop, and you go to university for a degree, but I came away with so much more than that. I came away with a close network of friends, with people skills, communication skills, leadership skills, and was just, so much better prepared as a whole. I think I was just a better person, if I'm honest. That 4 years and the people I met and the influence they had on me, I was just a totally different person than I was when I started. And I think it's really shaped where I hope my career is going to go. And I didn't know, like a lot of people, didn't really know what I wanted to do when I joined uni. I just studied sports science because I enjoyed sport. Picked up a bit of coaching, a bit of junior coaching at Leeds Hockey Club, just to get a bit of extra cash. Did some coaching of one of the, the third and fourth team at Leeds Beckett. And that kind of was when I realised, actually, no, I enjoy this. I like coaching, and I'm quite competitive, and was never, I'm very competitive, and was never the best player, but someone who probably always played a higher level than their ability allowed them, just through hard work and just determination. And I realised that actually, I can go on to coach at a higher level I've ever played, and I'm just very competitive and want to be involved with the highest level sport possible. And I think that 4 years at university, particularly my second through to fourth year, that's the closest you'll ever get to being a professional athlete, professional sports person. And I think a lot of students don't realise that actually, as a very young child, so many people want to be a professional athlete, football or whatever, live that lifestyle, wake up, eat, train, socialise with your team, match day, training. And looking back, that's all my focus. Obviously, you have to go to lectures and stuff, but that's all my focus was, and that's what my life was. I was in some ways living that dream of being a full-time athlete, because I trained 5 times a week. We played matches twice a week. We lived and breathed hockey, and I know it's the same for other sports, whether you play netball or rugby at the university. That is your life, and I think that was when I was actually, I wish I could continue doing this, but unfortunately, I'm not good enough to go pro. I can't keep on living like this the rest of my life, training, playing, but actually, I could maybe get there one day through coaching. So I'd always enjoyed coaching, your junior section, and I kind of realised how much of an influence you can have on those young players. And I just maybe want to be I thought, actually, I want to be a teacher. I'll go and study a PGCE. And that was it, yeah. So that university experience I wouldn't change a single second of it.
So how did you, just thinking about how you made that transition into doing your sort of PGCE. So how did that transpire? What do you have to do to do that process?
So I think there's a lot of different ways. The most common is applying through university to study a PGCE. It's quite hard to get on to train. It's very competitive. A lot of people want to be teachers, so it's quite tricky. You need a lot of experience. I'm just fairly fortunate that there's a recruiter in the area who regularly emails the university heads of sports, whatever the sport that is, netball, rugby, cricket, hockey, and a couple of people that were older than me had, through the University Hockey Club, gone to that recruiter, got a placement at a private school anywhere in the country, sort of done like a gap year where you're like a graduate assistant within the P department, and gone from there. And then the school, if you're lucky, they fund you through your teaching application. So at that point, I was kind of pretty sure I wanted to be a teacher, but not 100% certain. Like I knew I wanted to go and work at elite level sport if I could. So I did that gap year as such, that graduate assistant role for a year, and I was very fortunate that the school, the recruitment guy, got me an interview at a school very local to Leeds Hockey Club and to Leeds Beckett, 20 minutes away, in fact, from where I lived at the time. And yeah, just took the job, got offered the job straight away, took it, didn't really think twice. And this is now completing my third year at the school, so just love it here, love living in Leeds still. Got so much experience in that first year of teaching, you really thrown in the deep end. And I was like, actually, I'm enjoying this, I like this. And the school kept me on, offered me a contract to study my PGCEs, they paid for that. This past 12 months I've been an NQT, so a newly qualified teacher, and very fortunate that come September I've now got a full-time job at the school. So
that's great news.
Yeah, just kind of stepping stones, and I think that gap year I'd recommend it to anyone who's in a similar position. If you're still not quite sure in university what you want to do, you think you want to be a teacher but you're not 100% certain, rather than maybe taking that risk and spending a year studying that PGC that can be expensive, actually just doing that year as a graduate assistant was fantastic, because it really sort of, I remember the other there was me and somebody else doing the same role, and she was working in the girls' sport and I was in the boys, and we got on fine, we were total opposites. So that by the end of that 12 months, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher and carry on, and she really enjoyed her time but knew that she didn't. So she left, I stayed, and was just a natural progression for both of us. And I think that 12 months working at the school in that kind of role is great, because you get an experience. If you decide you don't want to be a teacher, there's different avenues. If it is for you, then fantastic, you've got your foot in the door. So yeah, I'd recommend that for anyone that's sort of thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, and as some of the listeners will probably know, I've worked in education for a fair bit myself, and I didn't follow your route, but actually we used to have grad assistants all the time, and the amount of guys that come through that process and then do follow through to being full-blown teachers is it's a route that I recognise. I think is really good, because it does expose, do you actually want to do this? And before you've done the course, because actually, as you say, it's expensive, so you could wait. It's not it would be wasting money if you did it all and then decided, this is not for me. Yeah, I echo that.
Yeah, just as quickly as you see all the positive sides, you see some of the negatives as well, and it gives you a very realistic idea of what the job will be like if you were to take it and carry on that career path. So yeah, strongly recommend that.
So what's it like in your day-to-day life now then? So you're working at a school. I mean, obviously right now we're in this situation where there's this pandemic, but I guess pre that, so maybe pre-March, even go back as far as pre-Christmas, you're obviously working with kids, coaching as well. What's that like, working with children?
Yeah, very rewarding, very tiring, and I'm sure you'll know that, Butch, from your time teaching. Can be exhausting, but when you see, I call it the penny drop moment. So when you see, if you're teaching a class and you're doing badminton, and there's just one kid, no matter how many times he tries, he's doing the backhand serve and he just can't hit it, and he drops it and he just hits the floor. And you explain, you find a way to explain something differently. You cater, you get on their level, and then all of a sudden they hit the shuttlecock and it goes over, and you see that smile and how happy they are. I call it like the penny drop moments. You've seen they've suddenly learned how to do it. That's it. They've got it. That's so rewarding. I think so rewarding. There's one time in particular, actually. I was teaching a rugby group. So I think it was a couple of years ago now. I was in my first year, and I was sort of assisting a very, very experienced teacher who was nearly 60, nearly about to retire. And the A and B team had sort of gone off practicing their training session, and we were left with the kids who, 11, 12 years old, year 7, weren't particularly sporty. Majority of them didn't like rugby at all, scared of the contact, this, that, and the other. And there's one boy in the group who, really tried hard, but he had learning difficulties, and he just didn't get the concept of rugby. Didn't get that actually when he got the ball, he had to run forwards, and So he knew he had to pass backwards. Every time he caught the ball, he just shoved it over. He just shoveled it over his shoulder. And just, it was a bit like a deer in headlights. And I remember that the experienced teacher I was with, got a bit annoyed and was getting maybe a bit old school. I hope he doesn't listen to this. He's a bit old school and kind of was like, "What are you doing?" shouting at him. And I just kind of thought, that's not going to work. Like that, that's what you're doing. And I'm not a rugby specialist. I was still quite new at the time. I was still an assistant. And I just remember pulling this kid over. And I knew he was very, very clever and very academic and really enjoyed maths and really enjoyed problem solving and that sort of thing. I can't remember exactly what I said to him, but I made it kind of like an equation for him. I said, look, the try line's over there. Let's say that's level 100. Like that's number 100 over there. Where you are now is 0. That's 100. Okay. Every time you take a step forwards with the ball, that's like adding 1 to your score. But every time you pass it, because it has to go backwards, that's like -1. And if you just stand still, that's 0. So I said to him, how are you going to get to 100? And he kind of thought about it. And there you go, that penny drop moment. I just got lucky. What I said worked for him.
Awesome.
And he went, well, it's simple maths, isn't it? I've got to get more positives than I have negatives. So I've got to run the ball more than I do pass it. I went, okay, so what are you going to do next time you get the ball? And he went, run with it. I was like, yeah, definitely. No, I couldn't believe what was happening. Next time he gets the ball, he finds himself on the wing. This kid's never scored a try in his life. And he picks up the ball, and all of a sudden, he turns out he's dead fast and just flew past everyone, put the ball down. And the other teacher turned around to me and was just like, what have you, just like, what? And I think, I think that's really important, that just realising how different people can, you can say something 100 times, but if you don't change how you're saying it, you're never going to understand. And if you can just I think that's so important in coaching and teaching. If you can just differentiate slightly and find out what that individual needs, you're going to get so much more out of them.
You didn't get lucky there. You didn't get lucky. That's what teaching is. That's what coaching is. You're doing yourself a disservice. You didn't get lucky that one time. You recognise the child in front of you and try to get on his level. That's not lucky, mate. That's good teaching. That's good coaching. So don't do yourself a disservice. I'll give you a compliment.
He had such an open run to the try line, perhaps, but yeah, it was great to see. That's for sure.
So you've obviously done your teacher training. You're now a newly qualified teacher. You're going to be, a full-time teacher as of September, which is fantastic. But you've alluded to quite a bit about your sort of coaching outside of school and your elite stuff. And I was involved in the men's side of the Leeds Hockey Club when you were on the men's side, and obviously last year you stepped across and started coaching with Ollie in the elite women's side of the club. So I'd be interested to just understand your the pathway there, sort of in terms of, did you take some qualifications? Obviously there's some opportunities to win the club, but I know those, but our listeners don't. So it'd be interesting just to sort of cover that off a little bit.
So yeah, I try, as we've talked about a lot, coaching hockey is something that I want to do going forwards. And my school I work at isn't particularly hockey school at all. Well, it isn't, full stop. So I've just tried to make sure that I'm as busy as possible all the time. So the second school finishes, if I'm not on board in duty, I've made sure I've got some form of hockey coaching in there. So, like I say, I've now lucky enough to be Ollie's assistant with the ladies' first team at National League. I coach at West Yorkshire Academy Centre. I was lined up to be team manager at Futures Cup this summer. And I think just when you're young and you have that spare time to really take up those opportunities, you've got to make the most of it.
So just on the Futures Cup thing, so just explain to the listeners what that is.
Yeah, so Futures Cup is a competition for all the best juniors in the country. So I think it's under 16s, under 18s, and you basically, after they get selected for their county, they then get selected for like a performance centre, and there's several of them all over the country. They then sort of get selected to represent what's basically north of England, south of England, east to west. It's all split up into different teams, different names. But from that tournament, England Hockey and the scouts there, they'll pick players, the juniors they want to take through to the national age group.
Right.
So it's sort of the highest level you can play at as a junior apart from your country.
Okay, that's cool. So that's a really high level. So you got selected for that pretty recently. So, I mean, obviously, unfortunately, it's been cancelled this year, but that's a huge achievement.
Yeah, and I think, in terms of what you need to get there, yeah, coaching qualifications are great. Obviously, you learn a lot. But the biggest one, I think, there's two things I think, and one of them is experience, and just continuously pushing yourself to, you know, work as hard as you can, as much as you can, but also just to surround yourself by mentors and just other people that know what they're talking about. So, you know, both of you two are people that I've watched coach a lot, I've taken a lot from, and yeah, I think that's really important, having people to talk to. Yeah, qualifications are great and courses are great, but realistically, even to be a level 2 hockey coach, you know, you turn up to 2 sessions for a few hours on a Saturday, and you turn up the next Saturday for a few hours, you complete the assessment, you get your box ticked, and that's all it kind of is. In some ways, you get, you know, you tick a box, you get a piece of paper, and to actually become a very good coach, you have to A, coach a lot and experience a lot of different groups and abilities, but B, watch good coaches and learn from them, and maybe learn, you know, things you change and things how you want to define your own career and coaching style. An experience for me for the past, so obviously I'm a teacher, so I have my summers off. So the past 3 years, I've gone to America and coached high schools over there. And basically the company, they hire coaches from the UK, all sort of, you know, 21 to 25 kind of age range. Some people, very good players, like very, very good international level players that don't have much coaching experience, but they probably, you know, they've played high enough level to know what to do. Other people like myself who have maybe not quite played that level, but a bit more experience coaching. And you've never met these people before, and you go over for 6 weeks and you coach at a different school every week, and you work with different coaches every week. And that's just, that for me has been such a important experience, just to learn how different people do things.
Really helped with your teaching career as well, though.
Oh yeah, you know, working with kids from different backgrounds, different country, it's helped me professionally in terms of my teaching. It's helped me in terms of my coaching. You know, you've got players that have, you know, everything I've learned about coaching and playing hockey is through Leeds Hockey Club or Leeds Beckett University. Whereas all of a sudden you've got people from Edinburgh University who have had different PE teachers, coaches, university coaches from Loughborough, Birmingham, and all of a sudden you're picking up all these different ideas. And even the moments when you're not coaching with them, you're just socialising with them and learning how they do things. It's, you know, really eye-opening and really, really interesting. And I think the big takeaway I have from that is you don't necessarily have to be the best player, but you can always learn something from somebody else. So I remember there's a couple of boys who were Scotland internationals, and obviously to watch them coach, watch them play, I learned a lot about the technical side of the game. But actually, you know, I was surprised actually when one of them said, "Oh, I really enjoyed what you did there. I'm going to try that myself." And I was kind of like, "Oh, surely you already knew, you know more about hockey than I do." But actually, just in terms of having that experience coaching kids, you know, you learn a lot from each other, and that was a really, really positive experience.
Yeah, so I recognise from my own sporting journey, I'm sure Ollie would be the same, you know, what you said there around that learning from other people. So as an example, when I did my level 3 hockey coaching down at Lilleshall, there were loads of ex-Olympians on that course. We had people like Craig Keegan, and we had David Ralph and Soma Singh, and Paul Edwards is the one that really sticks in my mind. So Paul Edwards played for Great Britain as a Welsh international, hundreds of caps. But the stuff I learned off him at 9 o'clock at night in the bar during those 3 or 4 days was stuff that I still implement in my coaching now, but it wasn't on the coaching course. You know, that absolute gold. And he was really good with it as well. He was quite open, you know, I'd quite openly sit there and say, "Paul, I hope you don't mind, but can I ask you?" And he would just, you know, an absolute font of knowledge. So if there are other Paul Edwards out there, when somebody pesters you for information, give it, because actually it's the way part of my journey, and clearly you've alluded to the fact that it's been part of yours. So yeah, it's an important part of learning progress, I think.
And I think on that, I guess similar in the sense that now in my job, I'm sharing office with 7 other coaches, I think, off the top of my head, all from different sports. And it's amazing what you learn in those conversations. Or I'll be planning something on the whiteboard, which is actually on the wall in the office, and one of the other coaches will say, "Oh, what are you doing there?" And I'll talk through it, and they'll ask thick questions of it from a completely non-hockey background. And it then makes you question what you're doing and really reflect on your practice and what you're about to deliver. So yeah, I guess really the roots of this podcast are coming from that, in the sense that we just thought it'd be a great idea to speak to like-minded people and people that have been affected by sport, and hopefully there's stuff there for our listeners to take away. And let's see what comes of that. So, if you listen to our other podcasts, Matt, you'll know that we like to finish by asking our guests if they have a quote or a mantra that they live by or they like, something that they think might apply to them, the way they teach, the way they coach, or anything like that. I'm interested to see if you've got any quotes.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a quote. This is like who said this originally or where it's come from. I heard a colleague of mine say this while teaching a lesson. I think they were actually telling the pupil off for sort of not engaging in. They were basically, because they weren't very strong, I think it was basketball perhaps, they used it as an excuse to mess about. And just how the teacher said this to him really sort of made me think about it. And I've used it in all my coaching and teaching since. And he turned around to this pupil and he said, "I don't care about your ability." And I was like, what? Like, it's a PE lesson. Surely you've got to be able to be successful. I said, "I don't care about your ability. I only care about your attitude and your application. And if you get those two things right, then I don't care about your ability. But actually, your ability will get better if your attitude and your application is correct." And that's something I think, is important in all aspects of life, but especially coaching, teaching. It doesn't matter how good you are. Like, you can only be as good as you can be. Potentially, skill is something that, not everyone has the same level of skill, but something that's always in your control is your attitude and your application. You can get those two things right in your job, in your career, in playing sport, coaching sport. If you apply yourself and you've got a good attitude, you'll go far.
That's great. I think actually that resonates with you, knowing you as for the last, I don't know how long I've known you now, 7 years maybe, 6-7 years?
7 years, yeah.
That probably the attitude and application sums you up in terms of when I've coached you and I now work with you. That's you give 100% to everything that you've ever been involved in. So I can see why that probably resonates with you.
Yeah. Always a fan of the underdog story and not being the strongest, but working hard to achieve. So, yeah, I guess so.
Amazing.
Lou, do you have anything on that?
No, it's just great, isn't it? And you see it time and time again. What's the phrase? Talent's great, but talent doesn't work hard. I guess that's a flip on that saying. I actually really like something you said earlier about the body achieves what your mind believes. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that should be a saying, but I love it. That's something that really stuck in my head. I wrote it down straight away as you said it. So yeah, no, really good. Just thanks for taking the time out, mate, to come on and do the pod. We ask people to basically give their time to speak freely, and you've been really good at it. And I think there's loads in there that people could take forward if they've got a similar journey they want to make, or lessons. I've certainly learned stuff, and I've got sort of 20 years on you. So yeah, it's really good, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. I echo that. Thanks for coming on, mate. It's been great to chat to you. Obviously, even knowing you as well as I do, I've learned some stuff about you, and as I say, Lewis and I will sum up ourselves, and we'll hopefully have you on again some other time. Maybe learn more about you. But thanks for coming on.
Perhaps even a little ballet lesson next time too.
Yeah, perhaps.
Get your plie.
Well, I don't know about you, Lou, but as I say, knowing Matt as well as I do, it was a really interesting sort of 50 minutes we just had with him, and I've learned some stuff about him. I think it's been great for our listeners just to get understanding of, I guess, the pathway from school through university and the opportunities that university can give you and present to you. Ultimately, you have to take those opportunities when they're there. And yeah, Matt's story, he came into uni a little bit reserved, a little bit anxious about the people he was kind of starting to meet and mingle with. And it just seemed that one trip away at Christmas, where he went out to America on his own, just almost gave himself the permission to then go, well, actually, I'm going to try and experience more. And the opportunity to go on that tour, he took it. And you just see it snowball from there, don't you? And he just keeps taking opportunities. He keeps alluding to things like he's busy all the time. He tries to fill his time by doing things and be productive. And I guess that really lends itself to why he's got to where he's got to at the moment in his kind of sporting journey and in his life.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I wrote down quite early doors in the podcast going out of comfort zone. And he constantly does it. That's quite challenging. That's a real challenge. And he said himself that he probably didn't really do that until he went to uni and that America trip over Christmas, and then obviously he pushed himself again to go on that Easter tour. And he's constantly, as you say, pushing himself to do different things. And I mean, obviously, I don't know him quite as well as you, but having known Dobbo for a fair amount of time, it's lovely to see. He's a really gregarious character now, and I would have, you would never have seen that of him as an 18-year-old. So that going out of the comfort zone, I think that's a real lesson. And we all do it. We kind of sometimes go into the mundane of just carrying on. But that's a really good reminder for me. Actually, but you probably need to get out of your comfort zone a bit more if you're going to.
Yeah, completely. He didn't mention really his actual playing time at uni after the first year. So I guess a quick background is he ended up playing first team at university. And at the time he was at uni, we had a really, really strong group of players. And I think he actually came into the first team and back down and back up again. But, and it goes back to his quote, and I picked up on it in the podcast at the end, about, I don't care about your ability, I only care about your attitude and application. That does sum him up. He was always there at training. He always gave 100%. And by his own admission, isn't the most gifted of players. And I guess that's almost been his story, even as far back as school. He spoke about other players in the team being better than him. But he always worked hard and cared. And you could just see that in the way he played. So it's interesting, all these kind of quotes he's chucked out there. I know that is him.
Yeah, that's cool. And there's the other thing I wrote down. I challenged him. Well, I didn't challenge him. I asked him about the importance of PE teachers and teachers in general. But that exposure to a different sport. And I guess if you're going into the teaching profession or something you're thinking about doing, is almost never pigeonhole a kid into a certain category of sport. There are times when, he said himself that he had never played hockey, but his teacher was like, well, we need to get a team out. You guys are coming with me because you're not being picked for the A and B team. Or that kid that, he gave that piece of that equation, that different way of explaining it to that lad in that rugby lesson. And suddenly, that lad, something dropped for him. And so that for me would be a reflection, is if you're thinking about going into that profession, or you're a coach, it's the same thing in terms of trying to help people be better. Is don't pigeonhole. Find another way to explain it.
And okay, that example, didn't it, with the kid that he spoke to playing rugby?
Yeah.
Have you said that?
Yeah.
Have you said that?
I said yeah.
And I guess really then in his, he's no longer a student. He's now a teacher. He's now coaching, and he's still trying to gain experience and still trying to learn. And although he's been on various coaching courses and got his qualification in teaching, he still goes back to trying to gain experience and trying to get mentors. Now, in this occasion, I'm lucky enough that he's my assistant coach, and we're learning off each other, to be perfectly honest. But he wants to continue to develop, and I think that's a great message to coaches out there and young coaches, even older coaches. Everyone's still learning, and there's various ways you can do that, but I certainly think those two are great ways of doing it, trying to get yourself a coaching mentor and just gaining experience. Be prepared to fail, be prepared to make mistakes, gain that experience.
Definitely.
And I guess really, and then the final thing for me, and we'll probably close on this, it's something that I've actually, particularly in my current role, I wouldn't say live by, but really try and apply to my job. And Matt is the shining example of this. And that's, if you give young people guidance and opportunity, they will succeed. They won't let you down. And I think all our listeners that have heard this podcast today can take that alone and apply that into their coaching, into their teaching. If you're working with people, if you just give them opportunity and just give them some guidance, I think they'll repay that. And I think Matt is done superb for his university career and now onto his coaching and teaching life. I'm proud of his journey and to have been a small part of that. So yeah, I think that's a great way to close.
Yeah, agree. Thanks, mate. Until next time.
See you soon.
Please give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter @SportsJourneyPod. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening.